purpose of today is to let everybody know about the council, about the campaigns that we've been working on, and to welcome you guys into our community and to work collectively to build it together.
Okay, so I want to jump right into things. I want to jump at the top and get us all on the same page. I want to, by show of hands, I hate to use this word, I hate to bring it up, but you have to talk about the problems if you're going to talk about solutions. How many of y'all are familiar with the word gentrification? It's like everybody. And so I want to start there in terms of generational wealth. And I want to ask Mel or the panel here to give me your perspective on like what does that mean to you in what you do. I'll pass this down because it looks like our mic is just talk.
Oh, okay.
No button.
So for me, generational wealth is a plan to pass property and assets to someone in your family that you'll never meet. And the way to do that is through, owning asset development things, land, and having a plan in place to actually pass that down beyond yourself, beyond your kids, beyond their kids, to have something in place like a trust, will planning and things of that nature.
Yeah, pretty much along the same lines. So I guess to give you an example, a friend from college, she lives here in 3rd Ward. Her mom wants to move out, and she wanted to sell the house. And so I talked to her like, hey, let's try to keep that in the family. Let's see how you can buy it from her at, a discount, do whatever we can do so you keep that and you pass that down to your children one day. So that's what it's all about, is owning assets that appreciate and that will hopefully give your kids some options one day and your grandkids some options one day. So that's what it's all about, is just the option.
I'm above the system. Can you guys hear me? Yeah, y'all can? Okay. So for me, generational wealth looked like my father starting a company over 38 years ago and me being able to come in with him and learn and work with him in the business and create additional wealth for me through business ownership. And I think the second part of your question was about gentrification.
Gentrification, yeah.
So in terms of gentrification for me, maybe an unpopular opinion again, I like to ruffle a couple of feathers, but something to think about. Gentrification is not always a bad thing. And I think it is oftentimes looked at as negative because we think someone's coming in and taking our property. But it doesn't have to be that way. And it doesn't have to be that. Gentrification can also mean that someone is coming in and improving the areas around you. So I think a part of it is, one, we have to learn how to pass down that generational wealth property, but also we have to figure out how do we work with our counterparts to improve our areas, improve our communities, our schools, the work live play assets that are in our communities. And so when we think of gentrification, we don't always have to look at it as it being a negative thing or someone's coming in to take something from us. It could be an opportunity for us to come together and invest and help to develop our communities.
Okay. So we bring up generational wealth and gentrification. Gentrification a lot of times catches this negative connotation because displacement is tied to it typically. That's really what a lot of us are scared of, right? Our loved ones being displaced. But a lot of times what we see on the ground is that displacement, yes, some of it is happening due to market forces, meaning rising prices and things like that. But a big chunk of it is happening due to poor succession planning, meaning having those generational wealth tools in place. So Mel talked about wills, trusts, and things of that nature so that you can pass down. But aside from that, what other things do you guys see in acquiring property or helping property owners, even on the commercial end, Tiffany, like hurdles to passing that wealth down? So whether it be like tax or things of that nature. You want to?
Yeah. So the first thing, when I started out in real estate, and I only operate in the Sunnyside area because I did make a personal commitment to Sunnyside to make that area better. And when I first started acquiring property, I went after the tax properties. You know, that was kind of like the cheapest way to get in. And this was 2018, 2017. And what I noticed, all of the property that was going to auction, they were caught up in probate. Basically, people passing away with no wills. And the obstacle to getting those properties, if it's not at auction, because they'll tell you a lot of times, oh, get it before it goes to auction. But they don't tell you that, okay, it's caught up in all of this, no will, I got to find, you know, who owns it now. So the biggest hurdle, like going after that, or even dealing with property that's transitioning from estate to people, is clearing the title. Getting your families on one accord, you know, letting people know, like, hey, you have some interest in this land, but do you have the financial power or bargaining power to save it? You know, having these conversations before your grandmother passes, having those conversations before, you know, like your mom or your aunt passes away, that was like the biggest hurdle. Those families did not have these conversations, and me coming to buy their land was the first time they even know that they needed to have that type of conversation. So that was one of the hurdles that I ran into. Families just not talking about, you know, succession planning and having wills in place. That was my biggest entry hurdle into buying property in the Sunnyside area.
Donovan, Tiffany, any feedback to that?
In terms of obstacles, would you want to know from commercial standpoint?
Yeah, that's.
So from a commercial standpoint, I think we're really comfortable with buying homes. But when we talk about commercial, it is taboo. We don't want to talk about it. We're scared of it. We don't even know where to start. And so I think one of the biggest hurdles is the education, and then also, of course, the financial aspect of it. No one likes to talk about financing because there's a lot of gurus that get online and will tell you, get into real estate with no money down. I'm the real estate agent right now. I'm going to tell you, I hate when people tell me no money down, because that does not sound good to me.
Right.
So I think the biggest obstacle is, one, finding someone who you can go to and say, hey, look, this is what I want to do. Where do I get started? Don't be afraid to ask those questions. Don't be afraid if it sounds too big for you or if you think it's impossible. The first thing you got to do is open your mouth and ask, and see what resources are available to you, from lenders to commercial real estate agents, developers. There's a lot of people who can help you in your process, but the first thing you have to do is be willing to open your mouth and ask the questions that are needed. And don't be afraid to talk about finances, because they're going to come up.
Okay. So those are some of like the hurdles we run into, right? But one thing that comes up, and I think, Mel, you asked me this before, we talk about generational wealth. We talk about purchasing and acquiring a property. That on some level is the easy part. Keeping it is the hard part. But while you have it, how do I benefit from this, right? And I think that's a question that comes up a lot. Is like, okay, so I have this property. How many of y'all have seen it's a property like this somewhere? Y'all have seen, right? And y'all like, you asked earlier, why aren't they doing something with it? You call them and they say, you know, I don't want to develop it. I don't want to sell it. I just want to let it be like this. Why is that? Why is there like a hurdle to, like you're saying, the generational wealth, the education? How do we extract some of this from these properties? Like, how do we use it now? How do we get these properties activated again, so to speak? I start on your end. I know that's a lot. I'm sorry, but
No, that's no problem. So there's a fear in community because we've taken advantage of our communities in a way that honestly is almost, it's going to be hard to get over, right? So we come in, and I know how many people have heard of wholesaling. It is not a bad thing. It is not the worst thing in the world, right? Some people make great money doing it, and they do a good job, and, you know, seemingly a lot of times it doesn't hurt anyone. However, when we initially started thinking about gentrification and people coming in and taking properties, what was happening was people that look like me and some of you all in the crowd today were coming in and buying these properties for dirt cheap and selling them at a premium to people who didn't look like them. So now you have property owners who are saying, I don't trust you. I don't know what your angle is. They don't know who you are. They're typically older people, and they really want to know, you know, where is my property going? I want to make sure that if it's going to be a property, it's going to be, you know, minority owned, or the person who's buying it is going to do good with it and not come in and gentrify or, you know, take our properties from us. So a part of it is we have to regain the trust of the people in the community. We have to make sure that when we're coming in, we're not taking from people. And I know that, again, wholesaling is not always bad, but it does have a bad rep because a lot of times we're going after people that are older, that are sick, and that don't have the education and have no clue that they just sold their $200,000 property for $5,000 to somebody over here, and they had no clue what they were doing. And so there's a lot of mistrust in the community when it comes to selling dilapidated properties that look like that.
Yeah, one thing I would just add on the financing piece. So a lot of people like Donovan, how do I get the money? Like, how do I fix it up? How do I build the new construction that you do? And I think that's the key, back to what Tiffany was saying about education. It's like, if you have a lot in Sunnyside, I could get you a loan for construction, all day, but people they don't know. And so it's hard for them to figure out, okay, I'll just sell it because I don't have the money to build on it. I think, so the financing piece is really key, because I think we're under the impression that we need to do everything with cash. And that's not the case. I mean, a lot of these construction loans, if you get 10% down, you can build on it, right? So let's say you need a $100,000 loan, you can scrape up $10,000 between you, brother, sister, uncle, auntie. You can probably do it. That gets you the construction loan. Then you fix it up or build the new construction, sell it, then you make your money, or refinance it, keep it in the family. So I think the education on the financing piece really needs to be something that we touch on just kind of going forward.
Yeah.
Anything to add?
Yeah, and also don't be afraid to make the relationships. So like, if you notice a property in Sunnyside, me myself, I actually moved to Sunnyside for this very reason, because I wanted to be around the people who I would, decide to buy property from or purchase property from. So, speak to the people that you have your eyes on, you have their eyes on their property. Like, don't be afraid to establish, those relationships where you are checking on them every 2 to 3 months, like where you do drive by and just, just wave because they sit outside on the porch, like, you have to develop those relationships, go to church a few times with them, but it's very, very worth it, because we do have to overcome that mistrust. You have to see me in the neighborhood and lie to know that I'm doing well and doing good. That's one way that we can move in neighborhoods like Sunnyside, South Union, and even Third Ward, is building back that trust, letting the elders know that this is a young, fresh face that you can trust. I'm here, good intentions on the ground.
So I'm gonna try to sum up, because y'all all gave three solid points, right? One, in terms of making sure that generational wealth is passed on, or being able to extract it, being responsible, right? Responsible to our neighbors about what we're doing, leveraging different loan products and things of that nature. We don't have to have all the money. And then coming back, be intentional about what you're doing and your relationships with your neighbors, right? And so if I'm doing all of those things, that's a lot.